back to the Palm Core podcast. Mike Palmer here. We're wrapping up our second season. We're going to say our seasons coincide with the academic calendar. Season one started around this time back in 2023, the year of the Troubles. We did season one, and then season two came. We're finishing up season two with this episode, and it's time to look back and reflect, figure out what's going on. Joined as always by Megan Cytron and Grant Balfour. Welcome back, folks.
Hi.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's quite a run. You know, it's easy to forget what you're doing when you're doing it. It's kind of like Palm Court Podcast, My How We've Grown episode.
It's been quite a year. It has been quite a year geopolitically and personally and, with our show. So
exactly. And the collective zeitgeist has changed in a lot of ways where, like, we were talking early on about, New College as the canary in the swamp. That was one phrasing that we were thinking about to talk about how as go New College, so might go higher ed in the U.S. And turns out we were right. Oh, well.
Sorry about that.
Exactly. But yeah, and now, what we're seeing at New College, we've seen all over the country. But then also for us, we haven't focused too much on the baddies, the Voldemorts, the Corcorans, and the Rufos of the world who've come in and kind of messed with our stuff. We're more trying to celebrate the parts of the culture that we love and then also keep track of what's going on. And I think it was a nice run, season two. What are your thoughts? Any opening thoughts as we kick off here?
I loved it. I'm impressed. I think that we were able to talk to a lot of interesting people this year. I was going through the list and I was surprised because I was so busy this year. I didn't really have time to contextualize it all personally, but seeing all the different people that we got together and talked to, I just, I love us. I appreciate us more than I ever did before. And we've had a lot of recent experiences that kind of attest to the power of our community too, and how we pull together. And, I've also gotten to see so many different New College people myself in person this year, traveling around and being with people. And, we're open to talking to anybody else too. Let's keep it going. Let's keep getting people together to figure out what this experiment was all about and still is,
I'm right. Our season started with Libby, Harrity, and then Mike Campbell. So we started with the very new and then kind of it's been there for ages. So a nice span of folks right. We have a vibe.
We have a vibe, but we also have range is the way I would say. So I feel like we've actually engaged with a lot of different angles into New College. And I thought the Eric Schicker, which was our most recent episode, was a nice one, tying a lot of things together too, because I didn't realize how central Eric was to the Lorax Rebellion until we were really doing the interview. I knew him more as like a political science. I knew he was involved in student government, but I didn't know that angle.
And how central the Lorax Rebellion was to Eric Schicker, because I wouldn't have guessed that with all he's accomplished that he would still think of that as such an important event in his life. And yet it was, like when we spoke with Jonathan White as well, and pretty much everybody who was there.
Yeah, and that's where, like, a open call to our listeners. I did run into Kevin Arlick, who I think was class of '89, and he was requesting that we cover the silent protest, which we got to figure out exactly when. Was that like 91 maybe?
I would say that was 92.
Something like that. We'll dig in and get definitive data on this, but it's some open call to folks if you're interested. Steve Waldman, who was one of our first guests, I think was one of the key organizers of that protest when basically we couldn't have wall parties because of a noise policy. And it was like the year without a Santa Claus. It was the year with no wall parties on campus. And I think it'd be an interesting one to perhaps dig into, do the full Rashomon treatment that we've now given to Lorax. There's other stories like that really throughout New College's history. So it'd be great to get folks who want to surface some of that stuff. I think it was it Kingsley? I remember John O'Miller was talking about the experiment with First Court, which I think was like Kingsley Commons or something. I forget the exact terminology.
Yeah.
It's in the show notes. There's copious show notes.
Do the show notes.
This is why we do show notes, and shout out to you, Grant, both for the show notes and then also for like the chronicling of like relevant news stories,
The media.
the media side and coverage of New College. Maybe we could take a moment on that. I imagine most of our listeners have seen all that. If you've seen our detailed show notes, a lot of that is the magic of Grant's diligence. But then
My pencil.
Speaking of your pencil is also heating up around coverage of New College.
Yeah.
Where are we with that now, too? Because it's not like we don't do that. This is our Canary in the Swamp segment. It's just, there's, I guess, carbon monoxide is everywhere with this.
And let's remember we had Katherine Joyce on the show who wrote one of the best articles ever written about New College. The New College Gambit, right? I believe it's the New College Gambit.
And that's sort of building on the Stephen Walker conversation that we had. So like we've done a nice job, I think, interviewing journalists and people who are kind of covering New College. We're probably due for a new turn of the crank on that in season 3 too. So that'd be a nice one to kind of keep in mind if folks have suggestions. We've had help from getting folks like Stephen and Katherine on the show, but it's nice, also the Penn America, Sophia. Yeah.
Amy Reid as well, who's been working with them.
Yes, exactly. Good job by us. Man, we're doing good work. But in addition to that good work, good job by us. Grant, good job by you covering news and coverage of New College. How would you characterize how that's been trending and where we are now?
How the news narrative is trending?
Yes.
Where we are now?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is probably summed up by the attempt at the governor putting the Ringling estates under New College control.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, it might yet happen in a future budget, but yeah, there was a huge grassroots uprising and a lot of partnership between the Save the Ringling folks and the Save New College folks.
Right.
And a lot of questions raised about there are ways to have made an actual maybe a more conservative institution that would still be academically valid, but that's not what's been happening. There's been a lot of weird expenses and some strange hires
and changes to the grading system, right? I mean,
and that's the latest thing is the New College body at large will now have grade equivalents for
I just want to retroactively get all of my contracts to be all SAT pluses.
Yeah.
So that I can get a 4.0. Yeah.
I very much suspect that in practice, it's going to result in a lot of people coming out with 3.0 averages who would normally have been getting 4.0 averages.
Right. But it also
is easier to say SAT on a thing and a SAT equals B.
Right. But it also is kind of defeating the whole philosophy in the process.
It does. Yeah. The whole, I'm going to sound slightly biased, but the whole grade grubbing thing. I mean, that was, I'll say it was a shell shock, kind of a culture shock for me in grad school. The idea that, oh, wait, I won't get a TA-ship if I don't have a high enough GPA. And if I need to get the high grades, then I can't just take the weird far out classes that I want. I have to take the intro easy classes that I don't want to skip past. And and that took a lot of adjustment. But I mean, I think that's kind of both the virtue and the risk of the New College system.
I mean, for me,
curiosity is rewarded. Oh my God.
And it's more like an intentional academic community. There's a philosophy that sort of carried through the entire experience, which that's where I remember on the Faye Clayton episode. Faye was in one of my favorite from season 2. I guess I was characterizing New College as an experiment and how it felt experimental to me. She actually didn't feel that way. And I thought that was interesting. But to me, part of what felt experimental was coming out of a competitive public high school on Long Island in New York. Everybody was grinding for the top spot and it was very competitive. And that was the whole vibe. A lot of the schools I got into were sort of carrying on that spirit. And then I loved that New College wasn't that, and that it was more finding your own path and kind of measuring yourself against whatever standards you can establish in a relationship with a professor, that's what I feel like is in jeopardy now, where like even it's from what I saw, it looked like some of the nature of the contracts are also going to become much more kind of vanilla, like four sats, like every contract is kind of about getting a grade as opposed to, I know the criteria for some contracts were notoriously experimental back in the day. And I kind of celebrated that.
Well, there's been some discussion about that on the Damon on the forum about whether or not New College, even before the takeover, there was still the kind of freedom to create your own tutorials and work directly with the professors, and if that was already being eroded. And I don't know if it was or not, but there are some people who claim that there were changes made, and I can't remember what the year was, but at some point in the not so distant past that already were sort of taking away the total freewheeling kind of contract system that I think we were under, because we didn't have a lot of oversight. We kind of got the green light. I mean, after I did the semester in Barcelona, and I think they shut down the abilities to do that for everyone in the future. But
I still blame my thesis on them tightening up standards for a psychology thesis. Like the fact that I kind of got through, because there was a lot of tendency towards like surveys and quantitative data, the quantification of psychology was like a big push to treat. I mean, understandably, because social sciences, sociology is kind of in a pickle right now because it's very much focused on like more qualitative research and less like faking social science into a scientific frame, which is what I think has been happening in a lot of different contexts. Definitely something to pick up on, I think, in the new year. And you've been, granting your many, many hats and many fingers in different things in good ways as far as New College goes. You've also been in conversations with the new provost.
I was in a conversation with the new provost.
You've been
ongoing thing.
I look to you for reads on what's happening there, because that does seem like, what the name is
Rohrbacher.
Rohrbacher.
He's actually the guy who, as a new classics prof in 2001, he might predate independence just barely, but it's like right around that time.
Yeah.
He's the one who changed or suggested that the four-wind seal change Floridae to Floridense, because that's proper Latin for the right kind of Florida.
Yeah.
So he's him, and he's that woven into kind of the fabric.
That's correct, though. I mean, that is correct. And I support him. As a philologist, I support him on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We support him there, and we're rooting for the future of the institution. So there's an element of kind of pulling for him that we have, but it's also been interesting as more has come to light around faculty who are leaving and what's driving their exit, that it is a kind of Kobayashi Maru no-win scenario for faculty, where stay and try to retain the integrity of the institution when it's being trampled, or leave and sort of feel like there's a sense of loss or incompletion to the exit.
Yeah,
I think there's more to it than that too. I mean, just the whole panorama of academia right now is just terrible. So I mean, they have their families to think about. They're settled in Sarasota. There's so many different considerations that they have. And it's interesting to talk to people like Amy Reid. It had to be very hard for her to do what she did.
Yeah. And Eric Schicker, too, who's talking about the politicization of higher ed and the polarization there, where I imagine a lot of the brain drain that we're seeing at New College, academics who've had great careers are leaving Sarasota, leaving New College. That's probably true across Florida, and more broadly true across red states. And then similarly, there's a certain type of academic who might be seeking out a job in Florida, but it does set us up for having two different higher ed systems, one for red states and one for blue states, which is, not surprising if you look at where, our political life is in America today.
I'll say, based on some recent news, like it's getting weirder beyond red and blue states.
Mhm.
Like University of Florida, the largest, I think it's the largest system in the state. UCF might be a larger university, but UF has
Yeah.
stuff. Like, of course, they had the recent problems with their president. Oh no, president-elect.
I mean,
being
the name
overthrown.
was pretty much on the nose there. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saint Oh no, Santa Oh no. Okay, he's found a nice job elsewhere doing research now, but the trustees have now, who are all Republican appointees, they're all ostensibly hardcore conservatives, have named a new replacement president who's a Columbia prof.
Mhm.
And who apparently, like, Chris Rufo has said, oh, he's great on Twitter. Like, open
Yeah.
arms to the guy from Columbia.
Columbia University.
Columbia University, yes. The infamously sort of taken over Columbia
Right.
guy who's fleeing there. So it's like, I kind of read that. I mean, okay, I'm not up on all the details, but I have to read that as like they're kind of trolling the board of governors and the governor himself in some way. Like, okay, we'll get Columbia guy.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you know, like what actually is happening with the student body at New College is the other question, where now, you know, we're 2 years into a new admissions office who is thinking about the new entering class. And we're getting to a point where there's fewer folks who were here under Pat Oker. Most of those folks are starting to graduate out. So I think trying to get a better read on what is campus life like, what is it like to be a student, what is it like to be a recent grad. It's something we did, I think, more in season 1, and then we kicked it off with Libby. But that's something where it'd be nice to get more perspective from folks who are closer to what it's been like to be a student and to graduate and to kind of struggle with all that. I think that'd be a good theme to try to pick back up on in the next season.
Yeah. One thing I've heard from people on the ground, like teachers and that, is that it's interesting to me and hopeful to me that the New College system has kind of like is working with people who've come in like not even knowing that it existed.
Yeah.
Basically, like athletes who've been recruited and didn't realize they had to write a thesis and work these narrative evaluations. Can I put that in the transfer portal?
Right.
A number of them kind of transfer out. The whole men's soccer team apparently transferred out. Then the head coach transferred out to be an assistant head coach at his old school. But some of them are sticking with it and like, yeah, this is really great. Like, I feel like really engaged. Like the system is as it is now, you know, what is left of the system is still kind of working and still sparking curiosity. So I think as long as that's there, I have hope.
I've also heard some stories, and I don't know whether we'll be able to get them on our podcast or not, of people who came to the school as sort of culture warriors, you know, from, you know, that side, you know, and were a bit converted by the school, just as happened, you know, in our times with all of us, you know, coming into contact with a lot of different people and different ideas. And some kind of remarkable things have happened that were unexpected still, you know, through the classes, but also socially through the student body. So I still do think that it's a school with quite a bit of diversity and diversity of opinion and ideas and that conversation. And there's definitely some stories we could tell if we can find the right people who would like to come on and talk about it. I'm not sure if we can. And the other thing I was going to say was I wanted to ask you, Grant, about what happened in Pensacola. And from what I've heard, like some New College people had something to do with their ability to fight back with their supposed takeover that was happening up there. Do you know anything about that? Or
I know some of the Save New College crew were in touch with the Save UWF crew. And I think it hinges on something actually that you might have touched on a little in your comment. Like, part of the deal is the culture warriors come in expecting things to be, oh, it was this, you know, far left radical campus or whatever, and then find out it's not really. So like, what are we fighting? And I think that was more exaggerated with UWF, where a lot of the students are like military, basically from the nearby bases.
Yeah.
And are not like culture warriors, really.
This is Matt Gates's district.
It's Matt Gates's district, but the interesting thing is Don Gates, his dad, who is a much like old school GOP dude, was actually like busing people from Pensacola over to the Capitol to be in support of leave the school alone, get these new trustees from Idaho and everywhere else out.
That came up on the Jeb Lund episode, which was also a high point of season 2, because Jeb was Jeb is hilarious. And there's even more content than what we shared that we recorded. Jeb's episode reminded me of the Merlin Mann episodes from season 1, where you're dealing with someone who can fire on cylinders that we may have a little bit of dust on, and they fire fast and often. Yeah, Jeb's got some stories. And if you know folks as a listener who have stories like that, who have profiles like that, who can interact with us like that, we'd love to talk more to those folks. But also, like, it is getting a little more deep Florida, where I felt like when we started, it was more of a national story. And I feel like now, since so much of higher ed has moved back into a state frame, that I think this is still resonant across the broader landscape. But I think it's time to go deeper on what's happening in Florida to think about what might come next for New College. And there's a gubernatorial election next year, right? And DeSantis is term limited and unlikely.
Everyone is expecting his wife to run.
Yeah. I was going to say he's unlikely to seize power and retain it, although you never know. That's probably more of a national politics concern. But assuming he's out, the field is a little bit open there, right? It's unclear exactly what might happen. And then as Tallahassee's governorship goes, so goes New College to a large extent, is something we've learned in the last couple of years. So the fact that Ron DeSantis is out is a good sign, I think, just in terms of change and the potential for new board of trustees appointments. A new governor wants to kind of turn the page. If it happens to be his wife, perhaps less of a shift than otherwise. I know Byron Donald is another, Trump's candidate is what it looks like.
Byron Donald's is the front runner.
Yeah. And then what about on the other side? What kind of candidates are the Democrats talking about? Are there any third parties? We can come back to this later. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're our Florida man.
As the Florida man, right now it looks like the Democrat pick is going to be another ex-Republican, David Jolly.
Oh, yeah.
Who may be more palatable than Charlie Crist in some ways, but, Charlie Crist was a Republican governor who ran as a Democrat and got
more palatable, always a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, exactly.
I threw up less in my mouth. It was great. Yeah.
And then the former Democratic minority leader in the state Congress, Jason Pizzo, has quit the party. And I believe he's going to run as an independent.
Yeah. I am curious about like third party activity just in general, both at the state and local level and then also at a national level, where like there's a lot of reasons why it's hard to get that going. But if there were ever a time to say we're not really getting what we want out of the two establishment parties, it feels like that time.
I don't know. I mean, you guys don't have a parliamentary democracy. It's all or nothing. It's just going to play against us every time. And we had that one Ross Perot oddity where it helped us. But I think we need to buckle down. And
are you saying you don't love Ross?
I don't know. I mean, I think the whole demagogue path is available now in a way that it hasn't been before. How much they're able to tap into the establishment, where Trump basically co-opted the party establishment to run. If someone actually had enough of if like Joe Rogan were running as an example, like there are people out there. Stephen A. Smith is the other one who would get crushed. But like the idea of like, we're full idiocracy and people who want to run because of their social media status and like anyway, it's not a politics podcast, but like,
okay, we can do that some other time.
We'll save that for our spinoff politics jam.
But I would love to talk to those folks who started the old school Catalyst, going back to kind of people who could talk on some of these topics intelligently and more intelligently than us maybe, and about the school and who are recent grads and
not more intelligently, more newsy. Come on. Don't sell yourself short. If we're just spouting off out of things we have limited information on, there's no one who's better. No, who's better than us?
What we were trained for.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing.
It's qualitative, not quantitative.
Yeah. Vibes. It's vibe coding. It's vibe podcasting. Come on. It's 2025 people. But yeah, and we don't want to go long. We want to thank everybody for listening. If there's any other ideas or topics you want to put out there,
I just want to say we didn't mention the Miles episode, last episode before Trump. That was a good one. I was unprepared. I would love to talk to him again about some educational stuff because he's there was a lot going on, and I hope everyone got to
international stuff too, like his Chinese experience.
I want to hear more bars. I wanted to, lay some beats down and get Miles in his element. Miles Eiton. That was a fun episode. Same thing also, if folks have suggestions for folks who are good in this format. Shannon Ingalls, who we had on season 1, was expressing maybe some interest in coming back, which is another great idea. Folks who we've had fun with, we enjoyed the conversation. Things have changed so fast in the last few years that, the conversations will need to be refreshed. And then also, I'm a little more interested in looking back too with some of these folks about the actual experiences people had on campus, which, those stories, it's an easy format to start memorializing that and kind of
like the Max, David, Tom, and Andy episode that we did. That one with the 1968 reunion, which we spent more time on that episode than any episode we've ever spent. I think.
Yippies. Oh my God.
It's so fun and so interesting. Would love
Max
to do
Reith
more like that.
And, David Ross.
Yeah. Another Dave too. There's two.
David, Tom, and Andy, I believe, and Kitty, who I did an off the show. I did an off the show interview with Kitty that I need to do something with still. There's so much to mine there. So many memories.
And one other thing we probably need to establish is a way for people to contact us. Probably an inbound email address is going to be the easiest way to do it. So we can figure out the best way to do that and share that out. So if folks have ideas or if they want to send us feedback, you could also maybe send us recordings that we could incorporate into mailbag episodes. It'd be fun to turn this into more of a ongoing dialogue with our listeners. We do it by bringing people on. In case anyone is wondering, there's not a particularly rigorous barrier to entry. If you express interest, we'll probably get you on. But some folks may not want to be on as a podcast interview, but they may still want to engage and share. So, and even outside of the Damon and Facebook, are there other ways to kind of get inputs and to do outreach so that it continues to be a conversation with the community? Parting thoughts? Where are we now? Do we get a SAT plus? How would you assess season 2?
I'm going to give myself a marginal SAT for lack of preparation this year because I was so busy with so many sort of traumatic experiences, but I've pledged to do better next year, just like a new contract.
You are still our study abroad lead in terms of repping from Madrid and doing so frequently on Fridays during the cocktail hour, which kind of earns you special bona fides in that respect.
Although always catching me at my best, but that's okay.
It's all right. Anything that makes me look sharper, I'm a fan of. Grant, thoughts?
The one evaluation, I think we all have one evaluation that sticks with you, and mine is from Mac Miller, who said occasional flashes of brilliance between gnomic utterances.
This is assessing your podcast performance, or this was...
I think it's fair to call it that a podcast assessment. Yes.
Gnomic
utterances. I don't know if this is the flash of brilliance or the gnomic utterance side. I think I'm leaning more gnomic utterance, so upset with qualifications.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, and how about as we wrap up, thoughts for anything that you really want to make sure we tackle next year? I would say one thing, and I wasn't even that into this, but I do feel like the music scene and the bands and, I was into it, but I wasn't in bands the way Grant and others were. It does seem like that through line is something that was certainly a big deal when I was there. And then the thing that I was closer to was sports. And I know sports are something that is still popping nowadays. And it was even back when I was at New College in our own way. But I think those sort of crosscuts, maybe folks who were into those scenes across the different generations, across the full span of New College's history, I'd like to see us do a little more deep diving.
There was a recent news item actually last week in Denver Westworld where there's going to be a musical premiering there. I think maybe as we're recording this, maybe as it airs.
Yes.
In September. Based on the life of Pirate Anne Bonny, who's close to my heart. My parents' dog was named Bonnie after her. She had a patch.
Oh, wow.
But yeah.
She had a patch?
Yeah, the dog had a patch. So,
Did you dress the dog up for Halloween?
I did not.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a musical that was somebody's thesis.
Yeah.
Just recent, like a 2023 grad, I believe. I have no idea, like never met the person, never talked to her, but it's premiering in Denver.
Yeah.
A lot of
Very cool.
Performances,
sword
maybe,
fighting.
like get a dramatic reading or two. It's a pretty artsy crowd, so maybe we get a little more of that. And a lot of folks have turned into,
actual artists.
built careers around, producing stuff,
You missed-
creative outputs.
You also mentioned possibly having a ghost stories episode around
Yes.
Halloween. People
Yeah.
which, I personally don't find them to be scientifically relevant, but there are people who think
Yeah.
they've seen them and felt them, and we should talk to them and see what
Yeah.
it was like.
In fact, maybe a seance. I don't know. Like, could we
I would be up for that.
could we point some of the ghosts? I feel like they're on our side. I feel like if I were a ghost in College Hall, I don't know. I mean, if Roaring Twenties, maybe it was a little bit like the cigar room that Corcoran.
We are the ghosts. Remember, that's what
I remember.
That's what Steve Waldman said. We're haunting them.
We are haunting them, and we'll continue to haunt them. We're sticking in their craw, damn it. All right, final hot takes. I get to be John McLaughlin. Go. Hot takes. What do you want? We'll wrap it up after this.
Hot take. I want another episode where we get together people who haven't talked since New College, who did something together, and like the 1968 one. I would like to see us do that again. So anybody who wants an excuse, let's do it.
I love it.
Yeah. I'd like to get current students just to see. I don't know.
Awesome.
Talk.
Yeah. Cool. And I'd like to it'd be interesting to get someone who's like a friendly, but maybe not as much part of our tribe on, just to see what, like Rohrbacher was one I was thinking of, where like, is there someone who is sort of maybe questionable, unclear, and could we try to have an honest engagement there? I know we've been burned a lot trying to talk to Corcoran and others, but I feel like there are folks who might be more interesting to engage. I mean, it was amazing to get Amy Reid on, but like a lot of folks have different challenges that they're grappling with, but maybe more faculty and more folks who have interesting windows into sort of the game theory of engaging with the administration through these challenging times, because you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, there was a recent thing that hasn't hit the news yet, I don't think, where Sarah Hernandez was elected by the faculty to be the division chair of social sciences, and President Corcoran said no. Just do another election.
Oh.
Just no.
Interesting.
Just no. He said, I'm happy to welcome the humanities division chair, but not that one.
Yeah. I think it's just tricky.
That free to speak.
That's the thing.
Think some of what Rohrbacher's thing is also like his associate provost is David Rancourt, who a lobbyist who was the provost and was the commission, was all these other things.
Mr. Southern Strategy.
Mr. Southern Strategy, Bunga Bunga, comedy routine. David.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And he's not even the worst one.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, but we're still having fun. We're still checking in. We're still keeping it real, and would love to have more folks engage. It's the Palm Core Podcast. Season 3 is coming up in the fall. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We're going to try to get the first 5 episodes are not on YouTube yet. We'll be pulling those ones over. Maybe grab a little bit of bonus content here and there to keep the feed active. But we'll be back later in September. It's been a nice way to stay in touch with the two of you as well. I feel closer by virtue of making this thing with you guys. So that's been a lot of fun. And we'll be back again soon.
Yeah.
Hi.